Welcome back to Coast Vue. Really enjoyed that conversation with Jeff Duncan. We're lucky to have access to him. He's such a good friend of mine and this show. And it's still fun watching the Saints, and it's going to be even funner, I think, watching the Pelicans as they get down the stretch. A lot of fun talking to Jeff and sort of getting a behind-the-scenes look at all the bits and pieces. So it'll be interesting as they head toward the San Francisco game. Do they have a chance? Maybe they do, but we shall see. Hey, listen, I've had the opportunity to spend some time on Gerard's show here on SuperTalk, talking about the Elon Musk purchase of Twitter, and I decided to spend a couple segments here on Coast Vue today just talking about it with my friend Ashley Edwards. Ashley is extraordinarily well read. He's a former journalist, former CEO of the Coast Business Council. Now he's in the private sector. And what's interesting, I bring him into this conversation. I really don't know his thinking about Elon Musk. So you're going to see it all sort of unfold here on the show. But without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Ashley back to Coast Vue. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Ricky. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, so Elon Musk buys Twitter for $44 billion. Some of it's his money. There's some capital from banks in there. That's actually quite important. And there's other capital that's in there. So he's got about $1 billion worth of debt to pay off. And the first quarter of this year, Twitter lost $270 million. So they're on track to lose about $1 billion. But no one wants to talk about the business side. They're only focused on the employees that he's letting go and the changes that he's immediately making in moderation. Everybody, it really, at the end of the day, it's all about Trump. That's what it's about. But media is like hyper focused on him because maybe they see the changes that are coming to social media. I don't know. What's your read on what you see so far?
Well, everything you said, I think hits a mark with me. I have been watching this news about Twitter very closely. Obviously, I've always been very interested in Elon Musk. He's kind of a guy that has fascinated me, and I've probably read just about everything out there about him you could read over a number of years. And here's the thing I think a lot of the media is getting wrong about this. We tend to jump right into the puddle of the culture wars anytime there's something controversial in our society. And I just don't see Elon Musk as a guy who's all that worried about culture wars or politics or social justice movements. I mean, look, he plays in that sandbox, but I think he does it very strategically. What Elon Musk has done with Twitter is he has made a business decision because he sees there a platform that has incredible quantity of users and incredible opportunity to diversify revenue streams over time. And I think it's important when you talk about Twitter to look back at when Elon Musk was running PayPal. He was one of the founders and was running PayPal. He got pushed out of PayPal, but his vision with PayPal was not simply to have an online payment platform that could be used to purchase things. He viewed it as if we can get enough money flowing through the PayPal system, then PayPal can be this innovative kind of catalytic change that can do away with banks across the world and create this sort of digitized online monetary and finance system. He looked at it from the standpoint, look, if we can get people to start putting their money into PayPal rather than just using it for transactions, it could become the largest bank in the world. And in some ways, his vision outpaced probably the patience and the vision of the shareholders and the folks that were making the decisions there. And of course, look at what he's going on to do now with SpaceX and with Tesla. But Twitter, I think, is the same type of a situation. He's not looking at Twitter saying, hey, I really love the social media space. I'm a Twitter user. And so, I want a hobby. He's looking at it from the standpoint of we have a digital future on our hands. The next 10 years is going to see more change in the digital world than any time that we could have ever imagined. And it's going to go beyond even what I think we can comprehend today. And he looks at it from a standpoint of if I can monetize this through all the diversified revenue streams that are possible through Twitter, using it as essentially the hub for all of this online activity and these financial movements, then we've got something there that can be an incredible economic force. And so I really think that's what's behind his decision making. And what you're seeing right now is the growing pains of a guy that's having to, really lean out a very fat company that was operating far too much like a social movement and far too little like a business.
I think that's extraordinarily well put. WeChat, China with WeChat has done essentially that, create this super app. He calls it the app X. He likes that X, as in SpaceX, and he got a son named X. But App X is literally going to be a super app where you're doing video and you're doing payment systems, and you're doing, as you pointed out, a lot of revenue diversification. Now look, there's a lot of competition in that space because Facebook and Snapchat and so many others are in that space trying to create their own super apps. I think he's got a good chance to do it. But you're right. I mean, if you look at 238 million daily users on Twitter, dude, that's unbelievable. And one analyst said, well, what happens if they lose half their users over these changes? Well, there's only been 1 million defection. I mean, in the scheme of things, if you've got a base of 238 million, that's not bad that you've lost 1 million daily users since you made this change. They have 90% advertising now. That's over $400 billion a year. They have 500 something million dollars that's in licensing fees and stuff like that. So they're mostly an advertising medium now. There's no doubt in my mind at all that his goal is to create a super app. And the other thing is that I think he also understands. I do believe strongly. There's certain he'll say that he doesn't care about the business side, but there's no way that you can have the number of investors in this conversation and them not being concerned about the $1 billion in debt service that needs to occur. But I think he really does believe that the kind of moderation that was happening, his biggest concern, if you ever heard a conversation, his concern is not nuclear war. His concern is artificial intelligence. He's worried about what's going to happen with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is used to determine what our news feeds are, and those are divided. They're created by rules. And if the people who are making those rules are sort of one side of the ledger politically, it's going to play out. He says you can't do that in the social media world. We need to have free speech. He says when someone says something that you don't like and you don't like the person who says it, then that's a good thing. And we've got to become more tolerant in that. The reality is Ashley, that you and I, the world that we live in today, if you and I start to have a intellectual discussion about one side or the other, because we might agree with an argument on the other side, suddenly we're either a left winger or a right winger, and that's what happens in society today. We need to have open and free discussions, and not all speech is you can have. There is free speech, but there are laws that guide us, and not only the laws of America, but there's laws that guide Twitter and every country where they do business. It's super complicated. I think he's got a chance to pull it off. I really do. He's got, you said it, fat culture. You've got they had lost their mission. He thinks they have $1 billion too much in infrastructure. If you do the analysis on the employees that he's let go, you're talking about over $1 billion in savings there. I know you're losing institutional knowledge, but that's what you have to do when you want to change a culture dramatically, and that's what he's done.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. Look, from a businessman standpoint, when you're not looking at it through the lens of, because let me just back up and say, I think oftentimes folks see him as being a free speech warrior. And I think he's doing that because it's convenient for his larger goal. But the more debate, the more controversy that's occurring on Twitter, the more traffic is moving through that website, and the more opportunity he has to monetize it. So you're darn right he wants free speech, because at the end of the day, by making it an echo chamber, it's not going to move the money through there the way it will if it has controversy. That's something that sells in our society. So, I don't doubt his ethics, but on the same note, I think he's a little bit less worried about free speech and more about making sure that he's pushing traffic through that website through whatever means he can get it.
Well, I think you're right, and that's why he went ahead and made the decision about Trump. Again, I'm not making a value statement about whether Trump should be there or not, but the fact that he made the decision and he controls that he did, and he did it through a poll, and that made people talk about it, and any kind of engagement, whether negative or positive, is good for him. He brought Marjorie Taylor Greene back on, Babylon Bee back on. I'm looking at this Kathy Griffin, that's the other side, got her back on. Jordan Peterson, which I was surprised that he was banned. What he believes is that you shouldn't be permanent bans in the future, that you got to have very significant timeouts. And he's going to have this moderation group that comes together, and they're going to focus on it. He sort of disbanded the safety committee, and I read a note this morning where some of them cried when he did it. Those are the folks who built into the artificial intelligence these rules that might give certain political points of view more weight than others, and I guess he just decided he's going to start over on that agenda, and it's going to make a lot of noise, and that noise is going to create more users, and you already have 238 million a day engaged. Lord have mercy. What will the future hold? When we come back, we can continue this conversation with Ashley Edwards about this really dynamic Twitter situation, and we'll see you after this. There was a moment when Elon Musk was trying to figure out, could he mass produce a model of the Tesla? And he literally he talked about, he was like a week or two away from losing all liquidity. He was literally sleeping at the factory. And a lot of the critics said it couldn't be done. And he doubled down and he pulled it off. He talked about the near bankruptcy and the need to change culture and all the things that he's saying now. It's part of his playbook, frankly. But he knows what it means to do this. And I don't know if you saw the tweet. Gerard referred to it yesterday, but I had certainly seen it as well, where you had Elon Musk at 1 o'clock in the morning holding court with all these young engineers at the headquarters for for Twitter. When you do things like that, that's sort of game-changing, culture-changing kinds of things. He knows exactly what he's doing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, look, there's no you don't take one guy who comes out there and turns PayPal into a behemoth, paves the way to make human beings an interplanetary species, changes the nature of our transportation system on the Earth's surface, and then dives into this that doesn't know what he's doing in business. And, you made a great point earlier, Ricky, which is, he's not just pulling money out of his back pocket here that he can play around with. There are banks behind this, and you better bet that they saw a very good plan for how they were going to make their money back and then some by putting this money in his hands. So even with Elon Musk, the banks are still not out there writing him blank checks without a business plan. And, it goes back to something the last time I was on your show, I mentioned it, as we look ahead in this incredible economic change we're seeing. 5 years ago, there were 50 billion connected devices in the world. We're up to nearly 500 billion today. When we get into the future, we're going to have 1 trillion connected devices with hundreds of trillions of connected sensors, all that are communicating through. And Elon Musk knows that. That's going to be generating traffic, and that traffic generates revenue. And as this continues to expand and grow, what he's doing is trying to create the infrastructure to be able to monetize it. Tesla was a route to be able to develop incredible electric battery technology and the gigantic means of production to make a worldwide product. And so he sees Twitter as having that base of infrastructure. And if you think about it, if you're starting from scratch trying to create a super app that in 10 years will help all the transactions that are happening throughout humanity, there's only a few really candidates that you would have right now: Facebook, Twitter, a few others that have that kind of reach in the world. And so he went out and bought one of them so that he can kind of mold this into his vision, this sort of innovative vision that he has for creating this incredible commerce product. And I think he will be successful in it, but it's not gonna happen overnight, obviously. And he's gonna have to do a lot to change the way the company operates with a much different mission in mind. And so I think what you see now are the early stages of him starting to put that into place.
Well, he's saying that we're not going to get there incrementally. We have to make dramatic changes to the culture that's goal was not to make money. I mean, come on, man. They were not innovating. They were. I think it's fair to say that many of them were social justice warriors, and they felt that. And listen, I don't fault them for that. But the reality is, when that's your focus, you're not focused on innovation in a world where there's high competition and things changing so rapidly in this space that you've got to be on top of your game. And look, you pointed out, we discussed it shortly. Is the reality is $44 billion, but I mean, he didn't just take all that money out of his pocket. $12.5 billion came from banks. Another over $7 billion came from equity. You know, again, we mentioned that, but that's a lot of money, buddy. You don't see banks and equity firms investing that kind of money in this world, in this moment, if they don't think there's going to be a return on their investment. If they didn't think that Elon was going to be able to pay out that $1 billion in annual, servicing of the debt. So there's a lot of smart people engaged in this conversation. And one of the things that I just want to really come back to, and that is this, that we've talked about this before, all this massive amount of data they're collecting on us. Let's take Facebook, for example, and then they're using an ad delivery tool based on all this data they're collecting from us to give us information in our feeds that they think we want to see. Now, look, they've announced they're going to start to move away from that and make our feeds much more like our friends, like it used to be, and that they're going to put more focus in sort of this short video, real approach. And they have to, obviously, because they're getting eaten alive in that area right now. Facebook lost its mission too. They were spending billions and billions of dollars on the future, and they forgot that they had to do cash flow today. And as you saw, the investors said, "Wait a minute, we don't like the direction of this company." So they're all sort of floundering right now, man. And this is a real opportunity for Elon to do something that's going to change social media forever. I believe it, don't you?
I do, and you mentioned Donald Trump earlier. I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump's, you know that. But if I had a social media platform that was making money from clicks, you're darn right I'd want him on there. So it's the pragmatism of business versus the lack of pragmatism you see in these kind of culture war conversations. And Elon Musk is a businessman.
He is he's a visionary. He's many steps ahead of most of us. He will be surrounded by really, really smart people who are engaged, and they're going to revolutionize Twitter. I'm banking on it. I believe that's what's going to happen. Anyway, listen, hope you're doing well, my friend. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Ricky.
You bet.